live long and prosper. So in this video series, I'm going to be talking through the social justice elements of every episode of the original series of Star Trek. The thing that inspired this project was actually a Fox News article which argued that Star Trek has in some way betrayed its traditional commitment to sort of political neutrality or middle ground by embracing progressive politics. In this series, we're going to see that Star Trek has always embraced progressive politics, and it's always been aspirational for social justice in various senses. I am taking a broad perspective on social justice here, so that may include multiple different types of social justice, whether that's racial, whether that's economic, whether that's religious, whether that's abilities, gender and sexuality, anything broadly considered. I will go through every episode. Some of the episodes I will interview fellow Trekkies and talk with them about it. And then below, in the descriptions, I will give you additional information about the episodes, particularly their original air date, who wrote the screenplay, and who directed that episode. I also want to dedicate this series to my dad, Michael Allen Zapkin. He was an OG Trekkie from back in the day, and it was watching the original series with him that I came to love Star Trek. In this video, we're going to talk about the episode The Paradise Syndrome. So in this episode, the Enterprise is visiting an idyllic natural planet featuring basically the same kind of flora as Earth, particularly the Pacific Northwest of the US and Western Canada. And they are visiting this planet for some reason before going to divert an asteroid that is going to destroy it. So the plan is for the Enterprise to go and divert the asteroid, knock it off course so it doesn't smash into this planet, destroying this planet entirely. They encounter some Native Americans, and these are proper Native Americans. We'll talk about that in a little bit. They encounter these Native Americans after having encountered an obelisk, a very large, sort of greenish stone metal monument with symbols along the outside of it. They are about to go back up to the Enterprise to go divert the asteroid when Kirk, unbeknownst to McCoy or Spock, who are the other two in the landing party, Kirk gets sucked down into the obelisk and basically has his memory wiped. Spock and McCoy end up having to go back up to the Enterprise because, again, asteroid coming for the planet. So they have to go up. They have to take the ship to try and knock the asteroid off course. Kirk, meanwhile, doesn't know who he is. His memory is totally gone, etc., etc. He comes out of the obelisk at the exact same time that Miyamani and her handmaiden, apparently, are showing up. Miyamani is an indigenous woman who is the high priestess of this group. And she meets Kirk coming out of the obelisk, and she is like, oh, you must be a god, because only gods can come out the obelisk. So, she takes Kirk back to the village where he meets with the chief, and the medicine chief, and all the other important people. Kirk's basically like, yeah, man, I don't know who I am. I could be a god. Don't know. Not real sure. And they're like, well, that settles it. You're probably a god. Except Salish, the medicine chief, who's like, nah, man, this is dumb as hell. This dude's just a dude. And he's kind of a sucky dude at that. So Salish is not a big fan of Kirk. Then there's a little kid brought in who was mostly drowned. Salish is like, yep, he's dead. Nothing you can do about it. And Kirk's like, wait, I know bad CPR. It's legit bad CPR, too. Like, he doesn't do chest compressions. Like, he does check the kid's airway and then blow into his lungs, but then he's like, I'm going to pump his legs now, which is not how CPR is done. Maybe in the 60s, but, not how CPR is properly done. If Kirk is from the 23rd century or whatever it is, he would know that that's not how CPR is done. But that, you know what? That is what it is. So Kirk saves this kid's life. The chief's like, oh, you've breathed life into a dead person. You must be a god. Salish, you're no longer the medicine chief. Now Kirk is the medicine chief. Well, they call him Kirk, because that's the name he eventually sort of comes up with as approximating his own without being able to remember it. So that's going along. Kirk and Miramani have to get married now, because that's the rules, apparently, that the High Priestess marries the medicine chief, and she seems pretty keen to anyway, so they get married. Things are chugging along, da-da-da. Meanwhile, back on the Enterprise, they have gone to the asteroid and been like, well, we pushed the engines too hard to get here on time, and now we don't have enough phaser power to actually push the asteroid off course. Also, in our attempts to do so, we've burned out many of our circuits, so we've got impulse power. We can... Basically, Spock is like, alright, we're going to spend the next 2 months going along very slowly in front of this asteroid at our maximum speed to get back to this planet and try and rescue the captain. And that's basically the plan. That's the extent of the plan, is literally to just, we'll go very slowly in front of this asteroid, try and save the captain if we can, maybe get the obelisk working. Hopefully it's an asteroid deflector, which of course it is, etc., etc. So, Kirk and Miramani are having a grand old time. She gets pregnant with his baby. Salish has vowed to prove that Kirk isn't a god, which he doesn't really seem to put that much effort into, even though that's his whole big thing. Then finally, the asteroid is coming. Enterprise is coming as well. And the chief and Salish are like, Kirk, you've got to come to the temple. Make it deflect the asteroid. And Kirk is like, yeah, I've been over this. I don't know how to do that. And they're like, no, but you got to go. Do this. Save us. And he's like, yeah, but I can't. And then finally, Kirk goes to the temple, and he's like banging on the thing, being like, let me in, let me in. And Salish shows up with all the villagers, and they're like, you're not really a god. You lied to us, we're going to throw rocks at you till you're dead. They don't succeed in killing Kirk, but they do kill Miramani with rocks, which is, structurally useful to the overall movement of the series, because now she is dead. Kirk doesn't have to leave his wife or take this random woman with him as his on-ship wife, neither of which was ever going to work out well for the series. Spock and McCoy beam back down, and the villagers run off. Spock manages to mind meld with Kirk enough to sort of bring Kirk's memory back. They figure out that Spock has worked out that the symbols on the obelisk are musical notes. And apparently the sequence of sounds needed to open the temple, needed to open this obelisk, are a communicator opening, and then the phrase, Kirk to Enterprise. Which seems like, A, a remarkable coincidence, given what has happened, and B, extraordinarily difficult a set of sounds to replicate. Like, if that's the thing that is going to open this obelisk, and that was the wisdom that was supposed to have been passed down by the medicine chiefs from father to son, it seems very difficult to reproduce the sound of a communicator opening, even if anybody could say Kirk to Enterprise. That's all I'm saying. So they get into the obelisk. Spock's like, yeah, I think I can figure out how to fix this. Just this button. And the obelisk deflects the asteroid. And then Miramani is dead, so presumably they can just peace out, you know? So that's what happens. The biggest social justice issue here, I think very obviously, the very direct one, is we have an extremely limited depiction of indigenous Americans. It is explained in the episode that there were a group, I think called the Preservers. I forget exactly. I think it was the Preservers. I might be wrong about that. That doesn't sound entirely right to me. But I guess the Preservers took a ton of people from Earth cultures, presumably at various points in time, but it's not really entirely clear, and just like seeded them throughout the galaxy for whatever reason. Like they just got bored or something, and so they decided this would be a fun family activity or some shit like this. So they took these different different nationalities, different tribes of Native Americans, put them on this planet, and were just like, do your thing. We put an asteroid deflector, nothing for you all to worry about. So that's the thing. I'll be clear about this. There are worse ways that Native Americans could have been depicted that would have been in line with the way that 60s mass media presented indigenous peoples. There are much, much worse ways than what we get in the Paradise Syndrome. What we get in the Paradise Syndrome is basically a sort of noble savage depiction where they're largely living in peace and harmony, and they're, at one with nature, and we're simple people, and if you show up with your advanced technology and space gadgets, we're going to be like, it's the gods. Oh, we can't fucking reason anything out because we are such basic dummies. Yeah. So it's problematic, without a doubt. We could have, like, the bloodthirsty savage or some bullshit like this, which is arguably a more negative depiction, but the idea of the noble savage is a really still... it's a concerning way of portraying indigenous peoples because it minimizes the reality of indigenous people's lives. It minimizes the complexity of indigenous societies. It basically reduces them to a sort of singular stereotype. The Native American chief from the 80s PSA who the single tear rolls down his cheek when somebody doesn't recycle their trash, or whatever the commercial was. This sort of image of like, simple, wholesome, living in harmony with nature, etc. It's not the worst portrayal that you can have, but it does deny the complexity and the variation of indigenous cultures in North America in really problematic ways. There are also issues. There's some issues in terms of gender with the way that, like, Miramani is portrayed, and the whole The priestess needs to marry the medicine chief storyline, this whole like arranged marriages type thing, generally not fantastic thing, especially because it seems like these positions are hereditary. And so, because I mean, we find out that Salish's father was the medicine chief before him, and was just like, no, I'm not passing on my secrets yet. And then he died and didn't pass on the secrets. So that's why the obelisk meteor deflector is fucked. Because Salish just doesn't know how to fix it, because his dad didn't pass on the secrets the way he was supposed to have done. But we don't know, so I'll put this caveat on there. We don't know for sure that the priestess position is a hereditary position. But given that the medicine chief position seems like a reasonable supposition. The problem with that would then be that their parents are the same people. If her mother was the previous priestess and had to marry the previous medicine chief, who was Salish's dad, like they're siblings. So that's a bit concerning. Again, that's somewhat speculation on my part. I don't know that that's really what's going on, because we don't know that the priestess position is a hereditary position, but it raises some awkward questions. Also, there's the fact that we only ever see maybe like 8 other people in this entire village. So is this a sustainable population anyway?